Welcome everyone to the Wasm Filters meeting. Today is the 25th of October and we have some topics lined up. Mostly this call would be more of a discussion on what we'll be working on in the future. So around Wasm Filters in Meshery and its surrounding projects. So let's start off this meeting by looking at the Cloud Native Day WebAssembly. So Lee, would you like to start this off?
Yeah. So in this meeting, we've been talking a lot about Meshery's ability to manage WebAssembly filters, and that's good. And we will talk about that again today. We also have spoken or had other people come and present on WebAssembly in general, more specifically WebAssembly toward Envoy filters. And so, you know, the last time that we met, that we had just said, hey, it's probably time to invite some more folks to come and share with us so we can learn as we go here. And so, given that there was just a recent Cloud Native Day WASM, some of those speakers will have fresh material and fresh things to share. And so, yeah, that schedule makes a good place to look for some of those topics. Look, Navendu called out one on WASI and neural networks, which to me seems quite relevant to our focus. And fortunately, the two people that presented that WASI neural network, they're both from Intel, and Intel partners on some of the projects here. So while both of their names aren't familiar, getting them to come present is probably easy enough. So their presentation was last June. Yeah, they might want to give an update on how far along they've gotten. Now, has anyone been able to see that the neural networks here, these are running where? Like, so this is out of context of a filter, but still might be interesting.
Yeah, like for me, since we were looking into some machine learning capabilities around Meshery, one of the, we should be able to leverage the system in which the machine learning model is running. So WASI neural networks comes with such a capability, like you can utilize the inbuilt CPU, like the CPU architecture more effectively. So you can use the full capacity of the system in which you are running. So if it has a GPU, then we can natively run it on the GPU. So that is what I was thinking.
Nice. Yeah. Navendu, do you want to reach out to so this is relevant for SMP as well. Let me reach out to Sunku and Ritika, ask if they know these folks and can provide an introduction, and see if we can get them to come and probably present in this call, because it's the most relevant here, but it's relevant to SMP as well. So yeah, that's a good one. Hopefully, yeah, it wouldn't just, anyway, I'll withhold some of my questions on it, but it seems there's another one, just this general one on developing and debugging WASM filters. So who is this given by?
Oh, that was also me. So,
okay. Or I mean, who is the presentation given by? Yeah, we don't want to have this one. But there are some other good ones to call, and that first one's a good suggestion. We should follow up. Does anybody else have suggestions on topics about WebAssembly? WASI is one thing. Okay, think about it. If you guys don't, we'll find some. So fair enough.
yep. So I'll share the link to the WASM event. So you can check those out. The event took place a couple of months back, so there are recordings as well. So you can check those out as well. So Abhi, like, would you be showing the configuration for filters right now?
So yes, I dropped this on Abhi. So actually, this might be more of a, there's design needed here. What have we concluded, Utkarsh?
Well, I think I propose that this is how the structure of the config could be. I mean, the metadata that we should be storing along with filters. And yeah, that was the last that we talked about. And the entire solution was in our GitHub issue. I'm not sure if the GitHub issue is still open or not. But yeah, there is where I was proposing that this is all of the metadata. Even I don't remember what the metadata or what all I was suggesting at that point of time. But the issue was about that these are the metadata that we should be storing, and this is the way we should be storing them. So that was the last thing that we talked about.
And I don't recall not, or like, it seems like, yeah, after we review, it seems like we should probably go forth. It might be that there's a contributor needed though from the community, probably a Golang contributor, right, to be able to work through this. There's something that's a little bit of a challenge, like to the extent that people are using mesh-rectl to import a filter, a binary, and if they also import a configuration file, the question becomes, well, how do we want them to package that? Is that supposed to be in one zip? Should they import two files? Should they point to a directory and then the utility will recurse the directory? The zip or the tar or the zip makes more sense because you can then reference it as a single location for a remote URL as well. But that also means then defining, well, not a standard, not a spec per se. Well, in some respects, a spec, right? Because now it could be that, and by the way, the link is shared in the chat as to the proposal that was made. Did this just time out? Yeah, the stale bot just got to this thing. Okay. So as an alternate to pointing to a tar file or a zip file, it could be that we require that people point to a service mesh pattern that has this configuration that's being proposed, and that Meshery, as it interprets patterns, reads through any other URLs that it needs to go retrieve them. That might circumvent some work for us because we have to define something else that kind of support some other structure. It might reinforce the use of service mesh patterns as like the thing. It also might mean that if someone provides a pattern that so happens to call to a filter, well, then that there would be built-in support for importing the binary and its config file. So that just seems like a wonderful suggestion to me. That just seems, I'm so glad I thought of that suggestion.
I think the proposal was that we will have everything in one pattern file, so the pattern will have an HTTP URL from which you can import WASM, and it will also have the dynamic configuration. What it did not, I think, one thing that was left out was the JSON schema of that custom, the JSON schema of the JSON schema, like the custom config that will get inside the. So that was, I think, the thing that was left out.
The custom config specific to the filter at hand. Okay. And given that is highly variable, or it could be JSON, or it could be like if we just support a blob at the moment, or, you know, okay. Good. Okay. I think you just reinforced my suggestion, and, you know, gracefully pointed out that you had already made that same suggestion.
No,
So,
no, actually, all of us thought of the only reason we were thinking of JSON schema was so that we can render form in the UI of custom filter. Yeah. Because our JSF would need the form. Yeah.
yeah, I suppose on one hand, if what people are typically applying as configuration, supplying as configuration to a filter is a string, some string or set of strings of something that would it be harmful to wrap it in a JSON, which might have like, like wrap it externally. I don't think it's harmful, right? To wrap it externally, because you'd still say, well, here's whatever blob they provided. It's just that you're adding some metadata to make sure that it's like, well, they provided it on this date, and this is the version number. They actually provided 8 times now, so there's 8 versions of it, and and whatever else there is, and like it's located. So was that really just okay? That JSON, that metadata, that JSON of JSON, was that any different than? This is going to get confusing, but the metadata that's tracked about a filter, a binary today, it's things like from where was it originally updated, like what was its location, or what continues to be its location potentially. When was it imported? When was it last updated? Like, are you talking about creating another set of metadata or adding to that same one?
So the metadata that you just talked about is something that we store alongside the pattern, because this entire thing is represented as a pattern. Alongside that, we store location and update and create and those things, and who created it. The metadata that I was proposing to store, other than that, it would be in the pattern file, so not other fields. It would be in the pattern file, but regarding that where the filter can be dropped in. So it would act as not that we won't allow the user to modify that, but the idea was that if we just pack it, so let's say we have official filters and we know where to drop them, we know how to configure them, so we can have default set of there, and the user can change them, but they would be default. They can just click on apply with a custom config like a JSON blob, or maybe in some cases there is no config, you just deploy it and it just works out of the box. So those are the metadata that I was proposing, that these are certain things that we can start to store.
Yeah, and then that makes sense to me. It also supports the notion that as a user goes to use MeshMap, that MeshMap will need to track it needs to understand what objects on the canvas, what node types on the canvas are allowed to receive a filter, right? Because that's where this metadata would also come in. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and I don't know if there's anyone on the call that this is well suited for. But if there is, for anyone who's on the call, it's the last, it's the issue that Debugging is sharing. And oops. So yeah, take a look. If not, we'll just tag this with the will fix, which Debugging already did, which will get the stale bot off of its back. Okay, if there's no immediate takers, good. Let's move on. We'll Utkarsh will have to talk about, if no one reaches out today to you about it, then we'll just have to talk about how to get it queued up. Nice, okay.
All right. The next topic is GitHub Actions for WASM filters. So will this action be only for WASM filters, or will we be configuring patterns and applications and all those things with this action as well? Like,
Oh, Cypress testing of WebAssembly. Oh,
the GitHub action.
oh, sorry. Well, this would be the ability to. So this is, yeah. This is, I think if you make this generic, this is the ability. This is a GitHub action for, not for performance testing, not for SMI conformance testing, but for meshery like patterns and applying a pattern. And it might so happen that the pattern that you're dealing with includes a WebAssembly filter. Some of you might be wondering, like, hey, why don't we just have one GitHub action for anything that you want to do with meshery CTL? It's like, the reason that we don't is because of actions themselves, how it is that when you configure an action and expose, and people go to use it, they need to configure what they're going to do. You can have a generic one. It just means that it's an uncurated experience, like it's unopinionated and a little more difficult to wield. So having one dedicated to just the use of patterns might make sense. And Jubril, like, if it's not that we would, that I don't think anyone here would push back on a generic one, like, you know, let's do it. And then for other situations, we're able to spoon feed a bit more. So I don't know if everyone here is aware, but there's 2 GitHub actions for meshery CTL currently. One of them is for SMI conformance, and the SMI project, they're picking it up, they're taking it and including it into a new SDK that's being created for SMI. So that's fantastic. Like it's going to be used and like it, that speaks to the value of having created an action specific to that, to SMI conformance, specific to that use case. So it will see use and it's being built in right here. And that's great. But a generic one, Jubril, yeah, if we can get like, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. Like, because then people can just take existing workflows that they have and like slice in just one meshery CTL command here, maybe somewhere else, another one here. It's good. Because yeah, at some point we can't write, we shouldn't write 15 actions. We should end up with a generic one. Yeah, and so they're actively trying to, SMI is actively trying to pull in the GitHub action now. Keith Maddox is the SMI contributor that's actively working on that. So if you should see his activity under the SMI spec repo under the controller SDK. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think as they go to use it, they have to include a couple of secrets, I think, in order to transmit the conformance test back securely. And so Utkarsh made a tokens command, like, so I think they're okay to go use. Like, I don't know of any open issues that would prevent them from using it. So there's already one for SMI. There's already a Meshery GitHub action for SMI. What's being suggested today, I think, are two things about potential new GitHub actions. So one is a GitHub action for service mesh patterns, such that the GitHub action would be focused on Meshery CTL, but it would be focused on Meshery CTL pattern something like pattern apply, or the second GitHub action that's being suggested is just a generic one that has an uncurated experience. Yeah. So Anita or Adina, Adina, I was just on a call with Anita, so apologies. Yeah, so actually, as we go to do this, that means that we probably need 2 more repos, and that Adina, to the extent that you were to go take an attempt at one for WebAssembly filters, well, I'm sorry, for WebAssembly filters, but actually it's for patterns. It just, so like if your pattern included a WebAssembly filter, great, then you know it would work. So I'll take an action item to go create 2 repos real quickly and make sure that Jubril and Adina both have administrative privilege over the repos, because up front, we don't need a lot of rigor around pull request reviews and that kind of a thing. I think having administrative access to the repo is helpful to the extent that part of the, at least for me, as I'm trying to test out a GitHub action, it's like, I want to go invoke I want to go start the action. And if I don't have at least write permission, then I can't just go kick it off. So I don't know that there are open issues for either of the 2 of these requests. I could be wrong. So Adina and Jubril, actually, it's if the 2 of you open up issues, that's a great, that would be good. So we would track this. Also, it'd be a great way of you having to make sure that you're mentally grokking the goal, because you have to write it down and say what you're going to try to do. And so I would suggest that you create those issues on the WASM filters repo. It's probably the right place to kind of track this. So get you there. But the nice thing is that there are 2 prior examples of GitHub actions for Meshery CTL that can be copied from and used as a great starting point. Nice. So I'm going to hesitantly or tentatively move on to the next topic, but excited that Adina and Jubril might be working toward those items. The next one was really like when, I forget the gentleman's name, from F5. He was going to work on some Cypress tests. He's not on at the moment. Gosh, who remembers his name? Really nice. Yeah, the nice guy from F5 that was new. He lives in Mexico. Mark. Anyway, I'll find his name, but he was going to work on making sure that we have some new Cypress tests, ones that would cover WebAssembly filters. Utkarsh, can you take that to follow up? If I get you his name, can you take that to, yeah, Mario, nice, to follow up. Really nice guy, actually. And make sure that he just got done, I think, fixing one of the Cypress tests in a different area. So I think he's into the rhythm, but he probably needs a good description of what would be done.
Okay.
And Utkarsh, like, I actually don't know that, like, because of the changes that are going on around WebAssembly filters, it might not be the best one for him to chase. It might be that, like, instead just going after one for patterns might be better. I know there's changes going on there. So you have to think about it, but it's a good reminder for us to continue to get him involved. And then, good. Anybody else into Cypress, by the way? So, you know, in terms of like continuous integration, that functional testing, if you are, you know, just say so, because more coverage there is needed. And there aren't that many people here that know Cypress. So I don't think it's very difficult. But it does, you know, I don't think it's horrifically difficult. It does take an intelligent individual a little bit of time to familiarize and like get started. It's really impactful because we don't have great functional test coverage. And so Vishal, this is one of those things, like, actually, Vishal, it would be good as you review the coverage that's there, which you can see inside of the repo. You can go to mostly any of the open pull requests and see what Cypress tests are being run and get familiar with the existing ones. And you'll readily see that, like, there's a lot of other functional areas of Meshery that are not being tested. And so, Vishal, if you could do that and come back and suggest, like, hey, that you think we should do one here, please do. Mario and Rodolfo and Delusional Optimist, Rudraksh Parikh, those three in particular have been kind of focused on that. So inside of the Meshery CI channel, yeah, please go suggest a way. And so, good. Well, I'm just having a heck of a time just kind of going through. I just keep going through the next topics. And so, assuming we're okay there, Gaurav, he did make a PR, or at least a prior PR, on the import options. So Meghana, since you are on the call, this is one of those areas that between the two of you, I think you've both worked on. And for my part, I have to admit to being lost on where we are currently. So do you know across applications, filters, and patterns, like where are we at?
Last time I talked with him, I think at that point, the awesome filters meetings were stopped for a while, right? So it was that time, and he wasn't sure, I think, if the work needs to be continued or not. Then he started working. I didn't talk to him after that, actually. So I'm not sure either regarding it. I was planning on talking to him about it.
Nice.
So
okay.
last time I talked, it was he wasn't working on it, I think so, or he stopped for a while, or I'm not exactly sure about it either. He was a little confused about the GitHub imports, so that's what he mentioned to me.
Sure.
So that's what I know, actually. I don't have an update regarding it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Let's refresh real quick, because I think we're almost done, if not done. The whole, like, complicated GitHub like OAuth interaction with GitHub, that can wait. Like, that we can have that as a secondary focus after we've confirmed that we've got a uniform experience here. So if we take a look at applications, when someone goes to, by the way, the applications, these are for the most part Kubernetes manifests, just different workloads that people will provision on Kubernetes. As someone goes to import one, looks like we have 2 buttons right now. I'm just refreshing. So we have this button that if you want to import one using a direct URL, okay. I think this PR, I think this was recently changed to not use this color. And I think, so I'm running v05.67, but I think this is changed so that at least the styling is different. I think that's done. Upload an application. So this is from your file system. And I think this is done. Okay, and then the other alternative method is this URL. It could be just a public facing GitHub URL, and that's fine. I don't think that we would treat it any differently. It's the OAuth GitHub thing that we can hold off on for a while. Go to filters, upload your filter. Now, this is the experience that might change a little bit. I don't think we have, these are the requirements that we were just looking at from Utkarsh earlier on the call. It's like, okay, if we have multiple files to upload, how do we facilitate that? That's an open question. But in terms of importing, I think this is fine. I think that's done. For patterns, yeah, Utkarsh, refresh my memory. Like, we're not, in terms of importing from URL, we're not treating some generic web server any differently from a github.com URL. They're both treated the same.
No, we are. So if it is github.com, then we treat it differently. Yes.
Do we do an API? We make some API calls. Now, are we just interpreting that from the URL itself? Okay. So in terms of UX, in terms of like, so from a UX perspective,
Yep,
we're done. So, okay. And then, yeah, so good. I think we're concluding that that particular meeting item is, I think we're done, because I think he updated the colors. I saw Aditya Chatterjee engaging with him and merging some stuff. So Meghana, that's nice. Meghana, I will say, did we ever, like, were we ever trying to merge this into just one button that gave you the option to either upload or import?
Yes, Lee. Yes, Gaurav was working on that. I mean, I think he was going to create a drop down. The last I remember was trying to create a common drop down for all the imports together.
You know, he's getting in your way. We need to. I mean, I was just talking with Gaurav, and actually, I think he's doing some exams and stuff. What I mean to say is, we either need to have him step aside so that you can carry this forth, or we need to get you onto something else. In this case, maybe we should get you onto something else, just because this is good enough for now. You know, like it's an improvement on the UX if we just have a single, you know, if we consolidate the interface. And if he's already done some work, maybe it's not worth trying to transition it, you know, from him to you.
Sure.
So you're on my list. Okay.
I was actually going to ask for some, if there are any open PRs that I can work on. Like, I do have some work I still need to complete, but yeah, I think I'll be, like, once the exams are done, I think I'll be able to do it. So shouldn't take.
No, okay, good. Good.
Yeah,
I'll put you.
I'm open to taking up new work. So.
Oops. Right. Nivendu, next up.
Yep. Sain has not joined the call because he was having some exams. But on the next topic, with seeding filters in remote provider. Could anyone give an update? Like, I'm not sure if we have been working on it or if you made any progress towards it.
Ashish is not on the call, right? Utkarsh, do you want to, like, the short of it here is that, yes, I think filters are, the filters from the WASM filters repo are being, excuse me, imported and seeded, but that, there's not really a but. That's being done. It's just that that code hasn't been released yet. So if you're running Meshry Edge channel, the Edge release, then that should be happening for you. It's actually a good thing to, you know, for people to test and see. Actually, Piyush, do you mind testing that? You should see logs when you start Meshry server on the Edge channel saying that there's content that's being seeded. And I think at this point, yeah, I think it's filters, sample applications. And then Utkarsh, do you know, are any patterns being seeded?
I think the patterns are being seeded. Yep, I think the patterns are being seeded.
Okay. Nice. So Piyush will give that a test, at least to confirm filters. There should be about 5 or 6 of them that get imported. Now, Piyush, when you do that test, if you would test both under the local provider and then under the Meshry cloud provider.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for that update. The last topic is on Filter Hub and whether we should have a repo template for creating new filters or for people to contribute new filters in Meshry. So as we showed earlier, like Lee, if you could go to the WASM filters repo, we have a bunch of we have a collection of WASM filters that we are using, and we also have some seed content as well, which are filters. So the what we need to discuss here is whether we should, like, how we should create a template for creating new filter files so that users can come in and contribute filters. So yep. Yep. Related to that, we are also looking into a design filter hub, which will be a repository where which stores WASM filters, so users can readily get filters from this filter hub, and it will be hosted by us and the Meshry project.
Yeah. I wonder if Artifact Hub intends to support things other than Helm charts. IPMI exporter, huh? That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't, yeah, this is sort of still kind of an open topic. Okay, other items, there's some pull requests that are open. Shaitan, I think you have one that on Meshery CTL. It's waiting to conclude. I think this validation on the channel command. You've got one more update, Saitan.
Yeah, I will do it by today or tomorrow. Sure.
Good deal. Good deal. Good. Okay. I think some of the rest of these we could probably wait to talk about on Wednesday. Oh, I've got 2 action items I should go write down. Anybody, do we have other topics for today? So Meghana, your name is here. That's good. Vishal, you've got your action. Piyush has got his. Jibril and Adina have theirs. So does Abi. Yeah, everybody's Vedant. I think as and when we, Vedant, have you had a chance to build Meshery's UI just yet? And then Vedant, we couldn't hear you, but I'll guess not. But for Adina and Jibril, as you go, drop a note when you do create those 2 issues, and I'll tag the issues with the new repos that are created as well. Okay. Very good. Other than that, anything else for today? Next week, we'll probably have some progress on GitHub Actions. We'll probably have just a really long list of things for Meghana to do. And we will have reached out to Intel about their presentation. Speaking of presentations, if you're into C++, this Thursday, there's a Googler that will be presenting, Jacob. He'll be presenting on Nighthawk. So that's good. Okay.
Other than this, like, are there any topics for next week that we should follow up on? The GitHub Actions is one item, and reaching out to the other main, the Intel team is okay. And okay, Piyush will update on the status of seed content in Meshery provider. And possibly, yeah, we will have people engaged in running Cypress tests for the configuration UI as well.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's it. Happy Monday. More coffee for me, I think. Wait, do we have one? Sayatan, did we already talk about your PR 4340? Oh, I see.
So actually, this was waiting for a long time, but I think
Yeah. So some Meshkit style error codes for filters.
Yeah.
this two are left, so I just completed that.
Nice.
Yep.
Utkarsh?
I can. Okay. If Utkarsh is busy, like I can review this. No problem.
I'll do it.
Okay.
It's been 6 days.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you in the other meetings this week. Bye.
I guess, bye.